Hello and welcome to the first session of our course on 8 weeks to a healthy metabolism. The objectives of the program, first of all, is to help you continue with your fat loss but without compromising your metabolism, which is a common culprit of weight regain. Understand the key factors in your metabolism and weight loss so you can make informed choices on exercise and nutrition. So everything in terms of diet, things like fasting, how much training you should do, whether you should have 3 meals a day or 5 meals a day, what to have after a workout, what to have before a workout, what type of training to do. All of these questions really depend upon how healthy your metabolism is and how much weight loss you want or how much weight loss you've already achieved. So when you understand whereabouts your metabolism is, you can make more informed choices on these decisions. And we want to achieve a healthy balance between our metabolism and our food intake. So the objective of today's session in particular is to understand that balance between food intake and metabolism and to find out how to keep calorie intake down without compromising the metabolism. In particular, that means discovering how to control hunger and cravings while maintaining a calorie intake that's suitable for weight loss. So first of all, what is metabolism? It's basically the combined process of every cell, organ and system in your body and the accumulation of all of everything that's going on in your body to keep you alive. It's often considered as the amount of energy it takes to sustain all of these processes. So often it's measured in calories and pretty much it's the amount of calories you burn off on a daily basis to keep your body going. So how metabolism and weight loss are related. So there's the law of thermogenesis. There's a number of laws which you might remember from school science lessons about kind of energy can't be created or destroyed but transferred from one form to the other. And that kind of law basically governs weight loss in terms of calories in versus calories out. So in a simplistic view, more calories in than out means we gain weight, and more calories out than in means we lose weight. However, I should say all weight loss programs are born from this thinking. However, first of all, it doesn't determine the type of weight loss, and also it doesn't account for all the other things that's going on in your body, brain and life. So it's quite easy to say, okay, simply eat less calories and we'll lose weight, but there's so much other things that are going on that are affected by what we're eating that means that it might not be as simple as that. So here's a number of factors affecting how much we eat. So our hormones, our emotions, our habits, our blood sugar levels at any given time, our lifestyle, could be family or our partner, could be cravings coming from the brain chemistry, our social life, whether we've prepared or not, whether we've had time to prepare, what our food preferences are, what our level of stress is like at any given time, and even our friends. So all of these factors are affecting how much we're eating at any given time, which means it's oversimplistic, I should say, to simply say eat less calories. We need to take a bit more of a holistic view of it. So there's an experiment that restricted calories, and probably the biggest one that's done this, called the Minnesota experiment, and they were looking at the effect of rationing on metabolism and various other things. So they took a group of guys, they kept them in a controlled environment in basically a house, they gave them a very controlled calorie intake and they measured the effects over a period of time. Now, by the end of the study, the average fall in metabolism was 40%. So the participants were burning 40% less calories every day than they were before they started. That's obviously not conducive to long-term weight loss. In addition to that, during the study, their activity levels fell. They naturally decided to do less exercise and activity. When they were asked how they were feeling, they reported extreme hunger, and this was often coupled with a preoccupation with food. So as we've talked about on our previous kind of talks on the basics of nutrition and weight management, if we're focusing on the things that we can't have, that makes it really, really hard because we tend to become preoccupied with it and we tend to think about them more than we should. And once they'd finished the study and they're allowed to eat as much as they liked, there was an overwhelming drive to overeat that was directly proportional to the amount of weight that was lost. So in other words, the guys that lost the most weight, once they were allowed to eat whatever they wanted, tended to eat a lot more. In other words, the more weight you lost, the higher appetite you had once you were allowed to eat. So all of these things aren't really conducive to weight loss. Did they lose weight? Yes. Did they keep it off? No, because of all these factors going on. So when we consider what are people's main reasons for losing weight, it's long term, it's healthy lifestyle, it's feeling good. So if we're feeling terrible, if we're thinking about food all the time, and if our metabolism's falling, so we're feeling sluggish, that's not a very good thing. And this is all what's happening when we focus on the calorie intake as the main focus. So the end result was, when the diet phase finished, they continued to overeat and regain the weight. The amount they overate started to diminish as the weight came back on, and it eventually plateaued when they reached their previous starting weight. So if they started off at 12 stone and lost a couple of stone during the study, as soon as they finished, they started to overeat, and as they got back towards 12 stone, they started to go back to their normal level of eating. So that they're pretty much, their appetite took them straight back to the 12 stone mark. However, a bit of a problem was their body fat was 75% higher than before the experiment. Now 75% sounds a lot, and it is a lot. What this means is if they started out at 10% body fat, by the time it finished they're at 17.5% body fat, so 75% increase. So what was going on? Basically, the human body has a number of built-in survival mechanisms that are designed to maintain you at a particular weight and a particular body fat. If you restrict calories too much, this triggers these mechanisms, and then your body tries to preserve and regain body fat through an increase of appetite and a reduction of metabolism and activity. And in order to prevent a future excessive drop in body fat, these mechanisms will continue to work until the body fat is even higher than it was previously. Because there's a lower threshold of body fat that's almost at a danger level. So if you start off at 10% body fat and you drop to 5% body fat, that represents a level of danger to your health and long-term well-being. So once you've regained that weight back on and you've gone back to 10%, your brain's going to think, okay, it equates the diet to a starvation period, and it equates you going on a diet to food not being available. And because it can't predict the future, it says, well, this might happen again, so what shall I do about it? Well, a drop of 5% body fat will take me too close to that danger zone, so I'm going to add about 5% of body fat to my body. So it's going to go from 10% to 15%. And as we discovered, it was actually 75%. So you gain an extra 75% body fat almost as a buffer to prevent you from dropping too much body fat in future. In other words, if you try and lose weight and you try and do it too quickly, your body will fight tooth and nail against you. And what it basically does, this is by influencing your metabolism. So we need to look after the metabolism to successfully lose weight for the long term. To sum up, 66% of people that successfully lose weight following a calorie controlled diet end up heavier than when they started within about 2 years, for the reasons I've just discussed. So why do diets fail? Basically, it's too much calorie deficit. And this calorie deficit triggers these survival mechanisms, and this trashes your metabolism. We also get an imbalance in your hunger and metabolism hormones. So we get a decrease in your metabolic hormones, if you like, so to lower your metabolism, but we actually get an increase in your hunger hormones. Now, if we can balance those hunger and metabolic hormones, then we're going to succeed in the long term, rather than your body fighting against you. But what about the effect of exercise? Well, if we consider 1,000 calories as too much deficit, let's say we want 500 calorie deficit. So the bigger deficit between how many calories you're burning off on a daily basis and how many calories you're eating on a daily basis, the harder your body will fight back. Up to about 500, and we're kind of doing it so subtly that these survival mechanisms don't really kick in. If we go over that threshold, then the body starts to fight back harder. So we've got two ways. Let's say your metabolic rate is 2,500 calories. Now, if we reduce your energy intake by 500 calories to 2,000, then we're probably just about okay. However, if you add in 500 calories of exercise each day, or on average each day, then now your metabolic rate is actually 3,000 because of that extra exercise. We're only eating 2,000. We've now got this big deficit that the body's going to fight against. Take-home message from this is, don't do too much exercise and too much dieting at the same time. Get a healthy balance. If you're going to average 300 calories a day of extra exercise, then just reduce your daily calorie intake by 200 calories. You're still getting that deficit that's going to see you lose weight, but you're not going to create your body to fight against you. So there's four things we can really do when it comes to the combination of how much we eat and how much exercise we do. We can eat less and we can exercise more. The problem is, this is going to create quite a deficit. We can eat more and exercise less. This obviously isn't great. We're going to actually gain weight by doing this. So we're left with two other options. And when we say eat more or eat less, we're talking relatively speaking. So in other words, you can drop your calories, let's say, by 400 to 500 calories, but don't do too much exercise. Maybe go for daily walks, maybe do a little bit of yoga, stuff like that, that isn't going to burn off too many calories, a couple of strength training sessions in the week, but we're not doing any kind of heavy cardiovascular calorie burning type exercise. That's what we call the eat less, exercise less model. We've also got the eat more, exercise more model, which means because we're going to do a lot of exercise, we're not going to reduce the calories by too much, if at all. And in fact, to some degree, we may even increase the calories. So you might say, right, I'm going to be burning off 700 calories a day, let's say. So actually, I'm going to eat about 200 calories more than normal. We've still got that deficit. You're still going to lose weight. But can you imagine losing weight by actually eating more is going to be a lot easier? So we're going to cover these concepts more throughout the program. I just want to present the basic idea, and the biggest take-home message is, don't create too much of a calorie deficit, and don't do a big calorie deficit and loads of calorie burning exercise at the same time, because your body will fight against it. And that's the secret to long-term failure, creating a scenario where your body's triggering these survival mechanisms and fighting against you. Okay, so let's talk about putting the horse before the cart. Because it's not about restricting calories, but it's about being proactive in our food intake to avoid overeating and create a natural small deficit. So there's a few things outside of just calories that make a big difference. So people that have better sleep eat less calories, people that eat breakfast eat less calories during the day, and this is more pronounced when it's a protein breakfast. So what we're talking about is, we don't actually need to count calories, we just have to stop ourselves from overeating, and as a result, and do a little bit more exercise, and then as a result, we'll naturally have this calorie deficit. Whenever I get people, once I've taught people how to eat the right foods for their body, if and when we do get them to count their calories, just out of interest, it's always less than their metabolism. So in other words, they're always in that weight loss zone, without even thinking about it and without even feeling any kind of starvation or deprivation. And that's the key. So this is the alternative. It's to stop overeating, it's to nourish your body in relation to your goals, and it's to have exercise and activity that boost your metabolism. So you'll tend to overeat when, first of all, you don't prepare, so you get caught out. You don't eat the right fuel mix for you. Your blood sugar tends to get low, for example, because you've had too many carbohydrates or not enough carbohydrates. You allow yourself to get hungry, you don't sleep well, and you don't have enough nutrients in your food, and you don't control your blood sugar very well. So all of these things will, regardless of the calories, you'll desire more calories if you don't have control of these things. So our focus on calorie control isn't about consciously counting the number of calories that we eat, but it's to naturally get to a stage where you're desiring less. Oh yeah, and the final thing is you don't manage your stress well. So too much stress will also cause you to overeat. So these are the really more powerful things that we can do to make sure that you're not overeating. So are all calories created equally? Well, consider a 250 calorie chicken breast versus a Mars bar. What's the impact on hunger? How much is it going to satisfy you? What impact does it have on your energy levels? So the Mars bar might give you a quick boost in energy, but you might feel a lot more hungry later and lower in energy later, whereas the chicken breast, especially with a salad, let's say it's 250 calories of chicken breast with lots of high fibre salad, is going to fill you up for longer. What impact does it have on cravings? Are you more likely to crave something else after a Mars bar than you are after a chicken salad? Of course you are. So we can see here, it's not about just the calories, it's about the effect that it has on your hunger, on your energy, and on your cravings. And why is this relevant to metabolism? Well, that is your metabolism. How hungry are you? What's your energy like? Do you have cravings? They're all linked with you, how effective your metabolism is performing, and we can improve how well our metabolism performs by eating the right things. What's the impact on your physiology, on your hunger hormones, things like that? So I'm going to show you this chart. You don't need to remember or even know any of this, but this is the process by which the sugars and carbohydrates in the food that you eat are turned into energy in the body. Now, it's a really complicated process, and at each stage it requires nutrients. So if you have that chicken salad, you're getting lots of vitamins and minerals in there, you're getting lots of good proteins and amino acids, and all of these things help this process along so you can actually use the energy. If you're having a Mars bar, you're getting hardly any of these things. So in other words, you're able to turn the energy from a chicken salad into energy your body can use much more effectively than a Mars bar. So what happens when you can't turn the energy that you eat into energy in your body? You have to store it. So what's the impact on fat storage? Much greater, even though it's the same amount of calories. So calories do matter, but it's the hormones that's more important. So let's make sure your calories are working for you. Let's make sure that the calories that you eat satisfy you, prevent hunger, energize you, enhance performance, and stimulate your metabolism. So over this 8 weeks, we're going to talk a lot about metabolism, but the first port of call is to get your hunger hormones in line with your metabolism, and this is what we're focusing on now. So, hunger hormones. They detect how full our fat cells are. They detect the composition of food in our stomach, get the body ready to break it down and digest it, everything else. And it detects the fullness and emptiness of the stomach. Essentially, they work in combination to tell us whether to eat or not eat, and they also work in combination with our metabolism to tell us whether to store or burn fuel. So a healthy balance of hunger hormones means we eat less and we store less fat and we burn more fat. So there are 2 key hormones that control this. The first is called leptin, and this monitors our fat cells and regulates our longer term appetite and metabolism. It detects how full your fat cells are, and if the fat cells aren't full enough, it makes you want to eat more. If you've got plenty of energy stored in your fat cells, it basically tells you not to eat. We've got another one called ghrelin, which responds to the food in the stomach and tells us if we need to fill up, and that's on a more short-term basis. So we want more effective leptin and less ghrelin to keep hunger at bay. So how do we achieve this? First of all, more protein. So protein increases leptin levels and it reduces ghrelin levels, and the net result being your brain is satisfied and is told that you're full and you don't need to eat. Protein breakfast especially sets us up for the day with this. Less frequent meals, we'll talk about this more later on in the program, but once you have good control over your hunger, cravings and willpower, quite often with people when we start them off on a program, we get them eating more often. We call it preemptive eating, proactive eating. I want you to eat before you get hungry, because until you're in a position where you're making good food choices, I'd rather stop you from getting hungry by eating more, and as a result you will probably eat less through the day and eat healthier through the day. However, once we've got that control, we can actually improve these hormones longer term by eating less often. So instead of 3 meals and 2 snacks, just focus on 3 meals a day. Now if you try and do that, but by the time you get to lunch you're so hungry you eat all the wrong things, or you're so hungry when the cake and biscuits come round in the mid-morning that you go for them, then scrap it. It's an effective thing to do, but it's less important than being in control of your hunger. Now, lower carbohydrate meals means we have better control of our insulin levels, and this actually helps to improve these hunger hormones as well. But lower means individual to you, so it means your ideal fuel mix. So it means paying attention to how you feel after a meal. Is it energizing you? Is it keeping you going? All of these things. And if you're hungry and tired following a meal, then you've not got the right mix for you, and that's something we need to look at. Now this is another one that isn't necessarily something we start off with people, but we get to a point later in time, and it's to avoid eating after dinner. Now there's a lot of controversy over this, because there's a lot of things saying it doesn't actually matter. As long as you eat the same amount of calories every day, it doesn't matter when you eat those calories. Now from a calorie perspective, that's absolutely true. However, from a hunger hormone perspective, there's a natural rhythm of these hunger hormones. They're more effective and less effective at different times of day, and we can optimize these hormones by making sure we don't eat too late at night. Essentially, if you're eating the same amount of calories, it doesn't matter. But if you are eating late at night, it means you're more likely to be more hungry the next day. You're likely to desire more food. So actually it doesn't make it all things equal because you're eating the same amount of calories. It means, yes, you're eating the same amount of calories on that day, but you're more inclined to want more calories in future. And so that's obviously something we don't want. So in other words, you can reduce your natural appetite day by day by avoiding eating too late after dinner. Now there's another thing that is slightly different to how we would start people off, and this is consistent portions, avoiding one big meal. Because if you're having, let's say, 2,100 calories a day, if you spread that out into 700 calories at each meal, that's more effective for your hunger hormones than having, say, 1,000 calories in one meal and 550 in the other two. You've probably heard the breakfast like a king, dine like a pauper kind of thing. And again, when we're starting people off, that's probably quite a good thing to do. But once you've got control of your appetite, hunger, cravings and willpower, it's a good idea to try and get a fairly consistent amount of calories at each meal. We're going to cover this more at a later time. I just wanted to give you a bit of an overview for now. So low calories doesn't mean eating less. In fact, there's a lot of recent studies that are suggesting that it's the volume of the food that we eat and not the calorie content that determines satisfaction. They're basically saying that it's the amount of food in the stomach that causes us to feel satisfied through the day. This is great news because it means we can focus on less energy-dense foods and still feel full and not desire more calories. So the less energy-dense foods, which I'd also call the fat loss foods, would be foods that are high in fibre, foods that are high in water, or foods that are high in protein. And if we eat lots and lots of these foods, then again we're less likely to overeat and we're more likely to have a natural calorie deficit without compromising the metabolism. Now we also want nutrient-dense foods, so we want lots of multicoloured foods which show there's a variety of vitamins and minerals in our diet that's going to help us to use the calories that we eat better. We talked about make sure the calories you're eating are working for you, and the only way we can ensure that is by making sure we're getting lots of the right vitamins and minerals in as well. Of course you can take a multivitamin, but we'd definitely rather do it with food. Okay, let's look at the negative effects of exercise, which is something we briefly discussed earlier. So just to reiterate, if you restrict calories and do intense exercise, you'll create too much deficit. If you focus on exercise to boost your metabolism, you'll naturally eat a little bit more as your metabolism increases. So this is much, much better. If our metabolism is 2,000 calories, and we gradually increase it to 2,500 through increasing muscle mass and all that sort of stuff, we'll actually naturally just start to eat a little bit more, but we'll still be losing weight in the process. The end result is you'll have a high metabolism, meaning you can get away with eating more without putting the weight back on. Essentially, instead of forcing it, we're allowing your body to regulate itself. And as long as we monitor it, you'll get the results without trashing your metabolism. So in summary, we want to focus on nutrient-dense foods that are high in fibre, protein and water to control hunger. We want to learn and apply the correct fuel mix for you to keep your blood sugar controlled. We want to make sure you don't trash your metabolism by restricting calories too much and or doing too much training. And we want to balance the calorie intake through the day and avoid late night eating to maximise your hunger hormones. So that's it for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you found it useful. If you have any questions, just drop me a line either on Facebook or via email, and I'll be happy to answer those. And the next seminar will be in a couple of weeks, but there'll be some things coming out to you in the meantime. Okay, that's great.